Welcome to Village Church Connections. I'm David Pavey. Marcel Pagnol, the French novelist, playwright and filmmaker, was born in 1895 near Marseille. In the French autobiographical novel My Father's Glory, he recalls childhood memories as seen through his young eyes. At one point, Marcel's mother is about to have a baby, and Marcel wants to know how the baby gets out. "Oh, it's simple," he's told. "You just unscrew the belly button and the tummy opens up." Marcel went to bed that night trying to unscrew his own belly button, but to no avail. His brother Paul was born, and later in life Marcel found out how the baby got out, and he challenged his parents for having lied to him. They responded that it was all right to lie to little children, as there were some things that they didn't need to know. Well, some years later, at their holiday home in the sleepy Provençal town of La Treille in the mountains, Marcel had a chance to go hunting with his father and uncle. But young brother Paul wanted to go too. Naturally, Marcel didn't want his kid brother around when hunting with the men, and he made this clear. "What should we do then?" asked his parents. Responded Marcel, "Tell little Paul we're going to go the day after tomorrow, and then slip out early tomorrow morning before he's awake." "But wouldn't that be a lie?" asked his parents. "It's all right to lie to little children, as there are some things they don't need to know," responded Marcel. This story has a lot to say about the power of example. As the first of 4 children, I was told more than once that I needed to be a good example for my 2 brothers and sister. I'm afraid I didn't take to that instruction as kindly as I might have. After all, it wasn't my fault that I came first. Then one day, my wife and I became parents, and before long we heard our little ones mimicking our expressions. We saw them doing the things we did, following our example. Now nobody had to tell us to be a good example. I knew that I had a responsibility to be a model for my 2 sons. The older I grow, the more I realize how much of what I do now is thanks to the example of my father. The example of several other people too has also inspired me. In his letter to Timothy, the Apostle Paul wrote, "Don't let anyone look down upon you because you're young, but set an example for the Christians in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity." Set an example. On at least 3 occasions, the apostle called Christ's followers to follow his example. "Follow my example as I follow the example of Christ," he wrote to the believers in Corinth. "Join together in following my example, brothers and sisters," he urged the Christians in Philippi. "You ought to follow our example," he exhorted the church in Thessalonica. Then, remember how Jesus washed the feet of his disciples before the Last Supper? When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "Do you understand what I've done for you?" he asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example, that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them." "I have set you an example," said Jesus. "You will be blessed if you do for others what I have done for you." Christians are called to be change agents. But when it comes to behavior, as much is caught from example as is taught by precept. We demonstrate the love of God, then communicate it. When we were ministering in England, I had access to a food pantry and was able to make up bags of food and distribute them occasionally to needy refugees. Fast forward a decade. A few days ago, I had a phone conversation with one of those refugees, a fine Christian man from Central Africa. He told me he is now pastoring a French-speaking African church in our town, just outside of London. And then he added, and I'm doing what you did, distributing food to needy families. It took me by surprise for some reason, but then I thought, the power of example. Young Marcel Pagnol followed his parents' example on being less than honest. I wonder who's following my example, or yours. Any room for improvement? And thank you for tuning in once again to Village Church Connections.